As a writer, it's nearly impossible to get helpful, specific, actionable feedback about your writing. Even if you join a writing group, most of the feedback you receive is vague, unactionable, and often more about the person giving the feedback than the person receiving the feedback. To that end, we decided to provide this guide to giving helpful feedback to writers. And it's based on over 30 years as a professional editor by StoryGrid's creator and founder, Sean Coyne, along with extensive experience in our Guild Editor Mentorship Program. We hope you'll take this to heart when giving feedback to a fellow writer or send it to people along with your writing sample when you're getting feedback. And I'm Ryan McRae, a student at StoryGrid University who loves to write and to talk about writing. So let's get started. So, what's helpful feedback? Before we can give specific advice on how to give feedback, let's first define what helpful writing feedback looks like. We believe helpful writing feedback abides by 5 principles. 1. Focus on the writer's goals. We must know what the writer is trying to accomplish with their writing and give feedback that is moving them towards their goals. Otherwise, we fall into this trap of assuming their goals are the same as ours. By keeping the writer's goals in mind, we make sure all of the feedback we give is tailored towards what the writer is trying to accomplish. It's not about us, the feedback giver, it's about the writer we're trying to give feedback to. 2. Engaging with the writer with an open mind. Even if the writing is not in the genre we personally enjoy or it harms our sensibilities, we must bring ourselves back to the process of giving feedback with an open mind. As much as possible, read the writing sample as an independent editor would read and evaluate. Number 3, identify clear, actionable problems. All feedback should be something the writer can immediately start fixing. If we identify a problem, we must be specific about where it shows up and why we believe it's a problem. So an example of bad feedback would be, the middle part of your scene reads a bit soft. But an example of good feedback might be, in the 4th paragraph, sentence 2, and the 6th paragraph, sentence 1, use the passive voice instead of the active voice, and that needs to be cleaned up. Or someone might say, I'm not really connecting with your protagonist. Ugh. But instead you might say, your protagonist shifts to the inputter instead of the outputter in paragraph 3. And additionally, you'll need to be more specific with your language when you're describing the protagonist in the opening paragraph. See, it's much more clear. 4th, you want to wait to be asked to suggest fixes. Our main role as feedback givers is to identify clear, actionable problems that need to be fixed. It's up to the writer on how she would like to fix these problems. If you have suggestions on how they can be fixed, wait until the writer asks if you have any suggestions. If she doesn't ask, keep them to yourself. Number 5, ensure your feedback is evidence-based. The feedback we give should not be based on our opinion or what we like to read. It should be based on clear evidence as a result of applying the StoryGrid tools. Which leads us naturally to the next topic. This is how to identify problems in a writing sample. The tools of StoryGrid were developed in order to identify clear, actionable problems within writing at all 7 levels. Depending on the length of the writing sample and the goals of the writer, we'll use different tools in order to give the correct level of feedback. So we have the 5 commandments of storytelling, where we identify the foundational pillars of a story that works to pinpoint any issues in the construction of the story's arc. We have the genre's 5-leaf clover. This is where we evaluate the category of the global story according to the 5 components of genre to determine what readers will expect. Then we have genre conventions and obligatory moments. We ensure the necessary elements of the story are present to fulfill the reader's expectations. Then we have narrative path, where we develop a consistent strategy for creating a story that comes from a coherent perspective and sends a clear signal to a specific audience. And then we have StoryGrid Foolscap page. You get a high-level overview of the full story with the macro analysis that fits on one page. We have the editor's 6 core questions, where we go more in depth on the topics from the StoryGrid Foolscap page. Then we have the StoryGrid spreadsheet, where we analyze a manuscript scene by scene to see if the movement of the story. And then we have the scene event synthesis analysis. This is where we understand the movement of each scene by answering 4 questions that evaluate whether all the levels of the scene work together. Then we have trope analysis, We break down a scene into a progression of tropes which illuminate the development of the protagonist's strategy over the course of a scene and highlight any places where the escalation goes awry. Then we have the beat analysis. We apply precise tools to diagnose the root cause of any problematic moments in the story. And here's a rule of thumb when using these tools. If you can't find the answer in the writing, then there's a problem in the writing. For instance, if we can't identify the inciting incident in a particular scene, this is a problem we can bring up in our feedback that is clear, actionable, and evidence-based. The StoryGrid tools identify what is missing and what is executed incorrectly in a given level of a story. Once we've applied the given analysis tool and identified potential problems in the writing, it's time to deliver the feedback. So how do you deliver the feedback? There are 2 steps to delivering the feedback. 1, review the writer's goals. It's important to both remind ourselves and the writer what we're currently working on together. This will put the mind of the writer at ease right from the beginning. As Simon Sinek teaches in Start With Why, we bring up the reminder that though we may disagree down the road, we have a common destination. And 2, focus on the next thing to improve over everything that needs to be eventually improved. It's important not to overwhelm the writer by sharing every single item at every level of writing that needs to be fixed. This is overwhelming and it's emotionally draining for the writer, while also confusing on what needs to happen next. If the writer asks specific questions, be honest, but don't flex your feedback muscles by dumping all of your feedback at once. Nobody wants to hear that. Focus instead on the next skill set that they should be working on. And then for helpful writing feedback, the goal of providing feedback to a writer is not only to fix their story, but to help the writer level up their skill at the craft of writing. By focusing on the writer's goal and giving clear, actionable feedback that is based on evidence, you find that applied to the StoryGrid tools, you'll provide the perfect environment to help the writer consistently move forward. I've been Ryan McRae, and for more information, you can find us at storygrid.com. Thanks for listening. Please follow, subscribe, do what you will. Have a great day.